Well, it's a pleasure to be joined by Isabella Samson. She's a very young and very talented singer-songwriter from Nova Scotia, Canada. She was born and raised in Cape Breton, and she recently won the Canadian Folk Music Awards. How are you doing, Isabella?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, so let's start with winning the award. I'm sure it must have been a surprise. Yeah, how did you feel at that time?
It was an absolute surprise. Going there was already kind of a big deal for me. You know what I mean? Being nominated was such a surprise and such an exciting moment for me. Not that I went there not expecting to win, but I was okay with not winning because everybody in my category was absolutely amazing. Um, but when they called my name, my entire body just kind of started shaking, and I I went up and I accepted the award, and I had remembered what I had written down, what I told myself I was going to say, but the award was heavy and it was kind of distracting me and I was shaking a little bit, but um, yeah, I got a lot of love and support from that, and it was a really huge moment for me, which was great.
Mhm. Yeah, the award
Yeah,
was for the category of Young Performer of the Year.
it
You
was.
were, yeah, you were 17 when you won the award.
I was.
Congratulations. Do you
Thank you.
remember what you said in that speech of yours?
In that speech, I thanked all of my past music teachers. I wouldn't be playing music at the level that I am without them. I thanked my band and everyone that supported me. I thank my parents, of course, because none of this would be possible without my parents. And I'm not really sure who else I thanked. Can't quite remember, but um,
Huh,
those are some important ones.
yeah, lots of thank yous and appreciate words. Yeah. So the album that you released, which was in 2021, is called "If It's Not Forever." I listened to it; it's really good. That is
Thank
the
you.
album that got you the award. But
Mm-hmm.
let's move a bit backwards. So, how musical was your childhood? Were your parents musical?
My childhood was pretty musical. My parents can sing. They don't like doing it in public per se, but they can both sing very well. I grew up in my church choir. I grew up in a church choir, so that's where I learned how to harmonize and how to sing with a group and be a meaningful part of a production from not necessarily a background, but with other people. You know what I mean? Um, so I grew up in the choir, and that's where I kind of, you know, that's where the music was kind of fostered in me, and the harmonizing especially.
Mhm.
Um, but there are very musical people in my family. I had an uncle, my uncle Lloyd. He before he passed, he was an incredible musician. So when I was young, I used to play along with him on the piano, and my grandfather on my mother's side, I believe, was also a fiddler. And I've got cousins and family members, Bonnie and Kenny, like lots and lots and lots of family members who are musical. So I've always kind of been surrounded with the music.
Mhm. Wow, that's
Mm,
incredible. Of course,
yeah.
like I said, you were born in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and this I find as a non-Canadian who's only been there for 4 years of university. It's actually, I think it's Canada's best kept musical secret because forgive me for being cliche, but the when I hear Canadian music, I often think of the popular acts right now, i.e., Drake and Justin Bieber. If
Right.
you're a rock fan, you think of Neil Young and the band that backed Bob Dylan. But I've only heard of Cape Breton music since last year, and I've had a few people who are from there or have been inspired by Cape Breton on this podcast. Natalie McMaster is one of them, as well as
Mm-hmm.
a very talented young girl who's been nominated for the same award that you won. She calls herself Irish Millie. She's from Peterborough, the same city that I studied in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so Tell me about being born there and the musical heritage that you have inherited.
So, I love where I live with everything in my soul. I don't think that I ever really want to leave for good here. I'm actually going to university here
Mhm.
next year, yeah. But
Yeah, congratulations, by the way.
thank you. No, the after I went to this music camp, there's a music camp that happens nearby, and a bunch of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, like East Coast accomplished musicians come and they teach students. So it was this big music camp that happened, and that's where I met Keith Mullins. And he kind of took me along with him, and he showed me so much about Cape Breton and Nova Scotia music. And I'm literally in love with it. Everything about it. I think it's got its own sort of feeling to it, but it's also like a sense of community and a sense of family. I've recently gone to the ECMAs, and the just incredible family that is there,
Mhm.
and within all of the East Coast music, Cape Breton and Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland, all of that area, like I think it's just got an extreme sense of family, and I think everyone's got an extreme appreciation for each other and the kind of music that everyone plays, and it's become something that I've loved, like that I admire so much.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's very much traditional music, and
Yeah.
I I see that one thing that I appreciate about traditional music is that it's oriented towards family, and it does foster younger talents. Listen, I grew up listening to popular music, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
rock and roll and hip hop and such, and there's I think it has become kind of a cliche that certain musicians performs and sings and writes songs about how as a kid they had rough family lives and their parents did not support their music careers or their
Right.
musical talents. So I'd like to hear from you. Of course, I would presume that your parents were supportive of your musical gifts and they were very much happy when you won the award and such.
Mm-hmm. You know, my parents and my family have always been extremely supportive. I've never had to go through that, but growing up in a musical family, like I said, they're always supportive of that kind of thing. And especially when you're going into that kind of form of art and you have that art inside you and have an appreciation for other people's kind of art, it's definitely something to admire and definitely something that my family appreciates.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when was your earliest memory when you thought to yourself, hey, I can perform music in front of people?
So I've always sang. Like
Mhm.
singing was always something that I did, and I believe I started piano lessons at 4 years old or something.
Wow.
4. I do think I was 4. But singing has always been something that I've done. Always, always,
Mhm.
always. Um, and my parents noticed at a very young age that I could sing on key. So
Mm.
I have a video of me, I think I was 2 years old, and I was singing Baba Black Sheep, and I was singing it. I started it too high, and then I stopped and I started again in a lower key.
Mhm.
Um, Having that kind of thing at a young age kind of moves, like, kind of, it's a good sign. And, I've always sang in church choir. I can't remember how old I was when I started church choir, but the first time that I actually performed in front of people, I was in grade 1, I believe, at my elementary school. The school had won an award of some sort, and they wanted me to sing for the awards ceremony.
Huh?
And so I sang a song from Country Strong, and um, it was great. It was great, and it's it was a bit scary when I went up on stage, but
Mhm.
I got more comfortable with it as I went along, and the more that you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. But I loved it. I loved everything about it,
Mhm.
and I've done it ever since. So.
Yeah. Just an aside, what's the name of the church that you sang on, and are you still part of that? Was it congregation?
So St. Louis Parish,
Mm-hmm.
that's the church that I sing at, and I am still part of the congregation. Ooh, during during COVID, we weren't allowed to have a choir. There was no choir allowed to sing for the mass. So I did a personal music ministry every 2 weeks. I was
Wow.
alternating with someone. So I'd play the piano and I'd sing for church. And I still do funeral masses sometimes too. And I'm actually booked for a couple weddings this year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, it's a Catholic church, right? Because you mentioned mass. I
yes.
see. Yeah, I'm studying to become one, and I think I'm gonna be one by the
Ooh.
end of the year. So yeah, it's part of those people who really like the Pope. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, it's incredible. Yeah. So what I was thinking. So do you remember the first time you performed in front of people, a crowd of strangers, not including your
Strangers?
family? Yeah, strangers, like as
Um,
in not your family.
right. So there would have been that time at my school, at my elementary school for their awards ceremony. Um, I did talent shows all the time after that too. Every year. Oh my goodness. I don't know why that keeps happening. Every year, the schools that I was in, like my elementary school used to have a talent show, and my middle school and high school also have talent shows and stuff like that. So I was always part of those talent shows because I always kind of wanted an excuse to sing.
Mhm.
Um, First time I, other than school talent shows, I'd probably say, um, oh my goodness, probably the music camp on the canal. That was the music camp that I went to where I met Keith Mullins. There was, so all day we'd go through sessions and we have sessions with the instructors, and you had the choice of picking your last two sessions as a band camp area. So like you got thrown into a band and you had those two sessions to learn and prepare a song for the all-star concert at the end where all of the instructors went. That was my first non-talent show, non-church
Mhm.
singing.
Wow. Yeah. Um, yeah. I love talking to musicians. It's one thing is because well, I like music, and secondly, I wanted to know, you know, how I wanted to know how they've managed to, I guess, overcome certain like nervousness and self-consciousness that I myself at perhaps at around your age when you first perform, and even at the age of 17, you know, I was like racked and almost, you know, occupied with
Yeah.
self-consciousness. And maybe that's why I couldn't bring myself to even performing musically in front of a crowd. Um, I've soon discovered that I've had a talent for writing and languages. So, but
Ooh.
those are things that you know do not involve crowds all that much. Yeah,
Right.
but that leads to my question. So how nervous are you right now when you do shows, like either presently or in the future? I know that you did one last week. So do you still have those like nerves creeping up on you?
So, my mom likes to use the phrase that I've had my nerves surgically removed. I don't really get nervous. Um,
There we go.
like,
Wow.
no, I think a lot of it and a lot of what would help if you did feel nervous is
Mhm.
just being confident in what you're doing. You know what I mean? Because you yourself know that you're good at what you're doing and you're proud of what you're doing, and you're going up there and you're showing everybody what you're capable of doing.
Mhm.
And 10 times out of 10, you always get a good response out of it. And you're doing what you love too. You know what I mean? So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There are moments when I do get nervous. If it's a really really big show, or if I'm playing on my own. Sometimes I get a bit more nervous when I'm playing on my own, just to get started.
Mhm.
You know, just to like break the ice and start playing. But as you get into it, it gets easier, and it's so much easier when you're on stage with more than one person. When it's more than just yourself. When I'm on stage with the band, I don't get nervous at all. It's more fun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many instruments do you play? And a bonus question being, from the most difficult to learn to the easiest, how would you rank them?
Okay, so the instruments that I actually play in public are the piano and the guitar. Those are probably my only two. Like, I could say I played the recorder. I was in a class playing the recorder in third grade.
You always
I
remember
wish
the
I could play the
recorder.
drums. I wish I could play the drums. I need practice though. Most difficult to learn, I would probably say, I want to say piano. It's not as hard to learn. It's just hard to get comfortable with, to the point where you can do whatever you want with your hands.
Yeah.
I also find that the guitar was probably easier for me to learn because I knew how to play the piano before. So growing up, I did classical music training. So I read notes off of a page and did some theory and stuff like that. I was never good at reading the music. I was great with the theory and I was great with the ear. So I was in classical music. I didn't like to practice. So I'd go to my piano, like we'd have like our piano session, and I'd pick a song and we'd start playing the song, and she'd give me things to work on for next week, and I wouldn't do anything all week, and then I'd come back and she'd be like, you didn't practice, because I didn't. And then by the time that it started getting like bad, I would just go on YouTube and listen to the song and play it the way that I heard it on YouTube. But the theory of what came out of that was what I think got me to where I am. Theory for me is the most important part, being able to hear where you're supposed to go next. So I don't play with notes, I play with numbers. Have you ever played with numbers? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Tell me about it. I guess it has something to do with the position of your fingers, right?
Kind of. So if you're in the key of C, C would be your 1 chord, D would be your 2 chord, E minor would be your 3, and you keep going, you know what I mean?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So there's like number patterns when you're like chording to the fiddle, or like, yeah. I found it really, really helped me. That was one of the last things that my piano teacher taught me. But also like the theory of the scales and the all that stuff, all of the theory stuff. That's what kind of stuck with me the most. And that's what kind of helped me, you know, be able to do what I'm doing. So I would probably say that that's the hardest. That was the hardest for me because that's my main instrument. That's the instrument that I prefer to play. But because I understood the theory and the scales and all that stuff, I just had to show myself what the chords were on the guitar, and it just kind of came with time.
Yeah, those are translatable skills. I mean, the chords and the scales and such. Tell me about your band, because so the band's name is let's see if I can pronounce it right. Barn Brea.
Yes.
There we go. A quick Google search shows that it is kind of a wordplay on the term Ben Brea, which is the private residence of one Alexander Graham Bell in Nova Scotia. So I'm guessing that is intentional. Tell me about that band of yours.
So we actually met through Keith. So as I was saying earlier, at that music camp, that's where I met Keith Mullins. He had come, he was doing an album launch, and he invited all the students from our area to come in, the musical students to come in and to sing songs. So it was going to start the show with us singing, and it was going to end the show with him playing some of the stuff from his new album. And he came in and he was like, well, can anyone play a full song? Everyone was like, yeah. He's like, okay, cool. So I started and I played a song, and then I played a song with another kid that was there, and then there was another kid that had come up and she was struggling with the song that she was trying to play on the piano, and I went on the piano and I played the song for her, and by the end of it I ended up playing the piano for everybody that was playing, and I was 13 or 14 at the time. And he, after the show, gave me his card and he's like, yeah, I'm playing here next week. Do you want to come and play? Do you know any of my songs? I was like, yeah, I know all of them, because I had seen him a couple years ago and I was obsessed with his music. So I was like, yeah, I know all of them, totally. So I went and I played with him, and he started taking me along with him to shows more and more. And then I was 16 years old, and I'd been playing with him for probably 2 years. And he sent me a text. He was like, hey, do you want to record an album? I just built a barn in my backyard. It's my new recording studio. Do you want to record an album? And I was like, yeah, totally. He's like, okay, do you have any songs? And I was like, I have a few. They're not great, but I have a few. So because I was so young and because I wasn't comfortable with writing songs as of yet, I did a lot of co-writes. But as we were recording my album, he was also recording an album with Jesse Cox and Morgan Tony. So all three of us were recording albums at the same time, and we all knew that we were recording albums at the same time, but we had never met. We just never had crossed paths. We all knew each other through Keith, but we never actually met each other. And once the albums were finished, and we needed to like start with the actual album cover stuff, so we were taking pictures for our album cover, Keith invited us all to a show that he was playing in Iona. So we all went out to Iona and took our album pictures. We met each other, and we got there at 1:00, and I think the show is at like 7 to 9. So we had spent the whole day together, and we started like learning each other's songs and just like messing around and playing together and whatever. And we played the show, and we were all just kind of hopping on each other's songs and just kind of like, you know, that organic feeling that comes from that kind of stuff where it's just like fresh, it just happens, and it just works, you know what I mean? That was what happened. It was incredible. And after the show was done, we were all sitting around a table, and like my mom was there, Keith's mom was there, Morgan's fiance was there, like everyone, we had like a big crew there. And someone was making a band, and Keith was like, yeah, let's make a band. So we ended up making a band. We only knew each other for one day, and we ended up making a band. And Keith's like, yeah, let's call ourselves Barn Brea, since we all recorded our songs at Barn Brea Studios. So, because that's what he calls his studio, because he can see Ben Brea from his house. So, since the barn you can see Ben Brea from the barn, you just call it Barn Brea, which actually translates into like Barn Beautiful, I think, or Beautiful Barn or whatever. But after that, yeah, that's when we made the band, and we've stuck with it ever since.
Wow. Yeah, I'd love to visit that at some point, because, you know, if I ever go to visit the Bell residence, and I'm sure that the barn would not be too far away.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so how was the writing process of those songs that, you know, would eventually end up on the album?
It was one of the best experiences ever. Being relatively unknown to anybody but my community, meeting people like that was incredible. We did the co-writes over FaceTime. So since it was COVID going on, we didn't even talk in person at that point. We just met over FaceTime. And I wrote a song with Jordan Coker from Quote the Raven, from Newfoundland. Incredible person. And Kirsten is his partner in Quote the Raven. Incredible person. But I wrote a song with Jordan. We wrote Take It or Leave.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful experience. Jordan is incredible, and he's an incredible songwriter, and he's fun and funny. And then I wrote a song with Brett Pierce, who's local for me. We actually just recorded a video for that song. He wrote Love Takes You Home with me and Keith. So all of the co-writes happened with Keith too. But we wrote that song, Love Takes You Home, and we just recorded a video for it. Brett's another incredible musician. Brett's going places for certain. And he's also just a great friend. And we also wrote a song with Kelly Loader. So Kelly Loader just came in second place on Canada's Got Talent.
Wow.
Which is incredible, yeah. Kelly is incredible. How do I describe Kelly? Kelly can mumble, and the words that they come up with during like the mumbling they can mumble good lyrics that makes no sense. We were all on the co-write FaceTime, and they were just playing the guitar and just mumbling a melody, and Keith was like, "Oh yeah, I like that." And they're like, "What do you mean? I didn't say anything." Keith was like, "No, that's great. We're gonna use that." Like, an incredible songwriter. Writes songs on stage for shows. But through that, I made like some incredible friends. I met both Kelly and Jordan in person. I met Kelly in person last year at Lunenburg Folk Festival. Incredible experience. And I met Jordan this year at East Coast Music Awards. And I seen Kelly as well. And I love them both. Like, I have a good friendship with them, even though we don't talk all the time, which I think is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible, isn't it? Because well, for one, there are certain people that when you've only met this for the first time, but you felt like you've known them for your entire life. I'm sure that you've had that experience with some people who are involved in the recording and writing process. And secondly, music, the process of creating music is in itself very much collaborative. And I've I've known certain cases where certain Western musicians can reach out to influences from non-Western sources, say David Byrne or Ry Cooder. And it shows that, and again, this is me being a language fanatic, is that music is the closest thing that we've come to a universal language. I mean, there's this thing called Esperanto, but no one really speaks that. But yeah, music, I can assure you that if you're placed in front of a crowd of people who do not speak the language that you and I are speaking now, English, and you perform your songs, and maybe they are fans of, good music in general, they would find you utterly mesmerizing and moving, even though, again, the language barrier. Yeah. So who was behind the lyrics of the songs?
It was, as you said, very collaborative. I was, the longer that we went along, the more co-writes that we did, the more comfortable I started to feel in my songwriting abilities. So it kind of progressed for me. But for the most part, it was all very collaborative. A lot of just throwing around ideas and picking the best ones for the song and the storyline.
Well, yeah. I should notice that, you're speaking a very soft voice, like very much lullaby quality, and I love it. But it is, when I listen to your album, again, If It's Not Forever, your voice is a lot more passionate and, filled with emotion and operatic. So there are these two contrasts. So I just want to point that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know. I speak pretty even toned. I don't I don't know. I like just being level with my voice, but I do find that with music, there's a different aspect to it. It's a very important thing to incorporate emotion into the way that you sing and into the songs that you sing. It's important to take the listener for a ride as you're singing. You know what I mean? The more change that there is in a song, the more interesting it is. The more interesting that the audience will find it, and the more captivated they'll be. Yeah, and also, you know, it depends on the song too. So if I'm singing um I hate you song, then I can't be all nice in the song, you know. Or if I'm singing a sad song, I can't sound like a hard rocker, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing about music too is that with the combination of words and melodies and harmonies, you can actually, bottle up an emotion. You can put an emotion, distill it, and put it in a bottle. And people who may have not had the exact same, say, life experience as you do, would find themselves again being transfixed and mesmerized by it because they have similar life experiences. Let's say I don't want to ask the cliche question of what this song means or something like that, but let's take one example of a song that I really like from the album. What's it? I think it was track number 5. The song's title is "Love Takes You Home." Yeah, and tell me about the personal aspects that went into the creation of that song.
That is one of my personal favorites as well. Love Takes You Home is a song that's extremely special to me. I have family members from Nova Scotia that move out west to work. But living in Cape Breton and knowing what it's like to drive across the causeway and look at the Welcome to Cape Breton sign, even though it's not the most beautiful sight in the world for somebody that lives here, it means something different. So life takes you places in the sense that, you know, a job can take you out somewhere that isn't where your home is at, you know what I mean? Life can take you anywhere, honestly. But love takes you home. Like, being somebody that's from Cape Breton and has such an immense love for Cape Breton and just the community about it and the culture about Cape Breton, my love for Cape Breton is what's going to take me home when the time comes. And I know, like, that's a universal feeling. I've got so many people who have sent me messages who said that they resonate with the song because every time they come down to visit, you know, it's their love for Cape Breton that takes them back. It's their love for the people that are there that takes them back, and the community and the culture. And life takes you places and love takes you home. That's,
there we go.
you know, the main idea.
Yeah. Let's talk about how. Sorry. Let's talk about how your music has taken you to places that you would never expect. So, what would be ever since I'm guessing due to COVID, you haven't had a chance to tour and promote the album all that much. But when you were touring and performing, what would be the most special location that you performed?
So, luckily for me, we recorded the album during COVID. So when COVID started easing up, like last summer, there were a lot of outdoor shows. So
Oh, that's good.
I did get to promote the album quite a bit there. I had some amazing experiences last summer and some amazing experiences this year ever since, you know, the album and stuff. It's really hard to choose one, but I think as of right now, to date, my absolute favorite experience through music that I've ever had was the ECMAs, East Coast Music Awards. I've heard people talk about it before and talk about how amazing it was. And I had gone to the Music Nova Scotia Awards, which were incredible, gone to the Canadian Folk Music Awards, which were incredible. And I expected the East Coast Music Awards to be incredible too, but in the same way. But it was incredible in such a different way. I've said it multiple times, but there's such a sense of community with the people that are there. Everybody's just there to enjoy each other's company and listen to music and talk and make friends and make connections, and it's such an incredible environment, and I met so many incredible people, and like that's the type of thing that you stay up until 6 o'clock in the mornings until everybody's gone, and then you go to bed so that you don't miss anything. And it happened in the hotel. The Delta Hotel was the host hotel, and we had the lobby to ourselves. So there's a big piano in the middle reserved for Flo Samson, and he'll play it all night, literally all night up until the morning. And as you walk down the hall of the Delta Hotel and you look at the ballrooms, there's a show happening in every single ballroom, and it's a different genre, it's a different everything, and you can just go down and you can see these shows. And in the venues that are nearby, there's more East Coast musicians playing their shows and different showcases, and everybody's just there because they love music. You know what I mean? With the amount of people that were there, not everybody was nominated for an award. Everybody just goes because they love being there and just having that experience. That was probably by far my most favorite experience through music I've ever had.
Incredible. Yeah. So to lead up to my next question, again, we've talked about how the process of creating music can be both personal and collaborative. One of my absolute favorite records is Blood on the Tracks by Bob Dylan, released in 1975. And it's a very heartbreaking record because I read that at the time he was breaking up with his wife, Sarah. And, I was pretty much a teenager when I listened to it. And I really had this romantic idea that, he was reeling from his divorce, and then he just went through a studio and just poured his guts out. But in reality, when you listen to all the outtakes, you realize that those songs took a lot of refining and fine tuning to make it into the final versions that you hear in the album. So I guess my question here to you is, do you remember a record that you feel really personally connected to, and how did that happen?
Any record in the entire world?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. Oh, I have to check. Can I check?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna check. I find myself very often listening to certain songs on certain records rather than the full record. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
But I will. Oh my goodness.
Just to fill in on the dead air, there's a popular British radio show called Desert Island Disc, where people from like various backgrounds, certainly musicians, but political figures and authors and scientists are being asked if they, which 8 records they would bring if they are stuck in a desert island. And for the sake of copyright infringement, I don't want to do that. So yeah, what are some of those records that you would take on a desert island?
That I would take on a desert island?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I take songs? Like just...
Yeah, well, they are songs, so.
Okay. So my favorite song at the moment is Tango Till They're Sore by Tom Waits.
Wow.
So I'd take that song, that specific song. I'd make my own record of songs. I would take that song. I would take probably Dark Red by Steve Lacy. Oh my goodness. What's this song? Rock and Roll by Pusha T. I never thought I'd find myself listening to that song, but I met somebody. So Dio Gibson is a friend of Keith's, and he's an incredible motivational speaker and artist, and just he's a great person. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. And I met him at ECMA, and he gave me an idea. It was his idea. He picks a song when he's going somewhere and he knows that it's going to be a good experience or it's going to be a new experience. He picks a song and he listens to it over the amount of time that he's there, so that when he hears the song again, it reminds him of that weekend, or it reminds him of that however long. And the song that he picked for ECMA was Rock and Roll by Pusha T.
Wow.
And now it's in my playlist, and every time I hear it, that's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of ECMA. And I love that week completely with everything in my soul. So definitely that song.
Yeah.
I'd probably take Imsit Nogama by Morgan Toney.
Yeah.
The fiddle solo in that is incredible. That's Ashley McIsaac. He's incredible. I would take, let me see. Either Threshing Floor or One Shot Left by Jesse Cox. I gotta take the band songs, and The Sound by Keith Mullins.
Yeah.
And Molded Like a Monster by Kelly Loader. And anything by like, there's too many songs that I could list off, honestly. My playlist is all new songs right now, so I'm just listening to them all constantly.
Yeah, it's a good thought exercise when you're a musician and when you love music, and you would find yourself refining the list as you grow up, of course, as you grow older, and those 8 songs are going to be different, and they may either be the same, but sorry again. But yeah, I'm always transfixed by how whenever I hear a song from my youth and I find myself, I guess, feeling the same emotions that I felt even 10 or so years later. And it is, yeah, it's just wildly incredible. I think one of those songs is Into My Arms by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Yeah, it's the lyricism, Cave's voice and the piano balladry. Yeah, and I'm guessing the songs that you've listed are those that really transfix you when you were a kid. And
oh my gosh, yes. Yes.
So another personal question: how did you manage to survive COVID-19? Assuming that so were you like, were you caught with the virus, or if not, well, how did you survive the process as a whole?
So COVID-19 down here ended up shutting everything down. Schools were shut down. I was doing it online. Masks had just started, and it was stressing me out, and everyone was kind of scared to go around and talk to people and stuff. But luckily for me, Keith had come and asked me about the album during that time, because as a musician, something like COVID is not the greatest thing of all time, because live music doesn't happen. So I think that was what inspired Keith to make The Barn and to record some albums. And we applied for and got some grants and ended up recording the album, and it ended up, pushing me and pushing us, and just like, I was very, very fortunate to have had that during that time. And I actually recently did get COVID.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Sorry about that.
that's okay. I was asymptomatic. Um, for the first day, when I could tell I had it, I could feel it in the back of my throat. The next morning I woke up and there was nothing wrong. Not at all. COVID didn't really affect me. Lucky, like I was very fortunate for that. But no, we ended up having to reschedule a show because everyone in the band ended up getting COVID at the same time, even though we weren't together, which was kind of weird. Keith and Morgan, I think, got it on a plane. Jesse had got it from his daughter at school, and I had got it at a party. So it wasn't planned, but it ended up happening. We all had COVID, so we had to reschedule a show. But that was my COVID. My COVID wasn't very bad. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad, but it wasn't. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunities that I had during COVID.
Yeah. So let's talk about university. So where's the university that you are going to, and what are some of the expectations that you may have like coming into it?
So I am going to Cape Breton University in Sydney. And I'm going into it for nursing.
Huh?
I've always kind of wanted to be a nurse my whole life. I wanted to, I like working with people. I like talking to people and helping people and making people feel better. I used to try and like heal my mom's, like if my cat would scratch her, I used to try and heal them with like Q-tips and water and soap. But no, I've always kind of wanted to be a nurse, so I'm going to do that. And there's also a really wonderful music scene up in Sydney. So something that I'm very confident in is that the music will not go away. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the music will just disappear out of me if I'm going to school for nursing.
Yeah.
It's always going to be there. Music's always going to be there for me. I'm going to take my guitar with me. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm just going to maybe slow down and focus on school for a little while. But I'm still planning on doing everything that I can. You know what I mean? And I'm very, very excited to go. Very excited to go. CBU has a wonderful campus and a wonderful reputation, and I've got some friends that go there that absolutely adore it, and I'm really, really excited for the program and really excited for the experience.
Yeah, best of luck. I'm sure you do very great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've known a lot of nursing students when I was in college at Trent University, which is in Peterborough. I can tell you that they are some of the kindest people that I've encountered. Yeah, they're very kind people, very hardworking. Some of them actually become nurses, and they work very long, difficult hours. So, if you do want to pursue that career, so that's something that you should expect, I guess. But
absolutely.
But if I may give another piece of very much unsolicited advice, since I've graduated from university, you will learn a lot of important things, and most of them, even all of them, would be outside the classroom. Yeah, apparently,
Absolutely.
in my experience, the most important things that you learn being in university is very much outside of the context of the
Absolutely.
university, and that is, yeah, when I think about it, it's still very much strange to me. Yeah. So I'm gonna give you the chance to close off this little conversation that we have, which I very much enjoy. Yeah. I guess tell me about what your thoughts on music as a whole. Everyone listens to it. Everyone has things to say about it. But what does music mean to you, both performing it and listen to it, and that?
Music to me is obviously a form of art, and I feel like having a form of art in your life, ironically but not ironically, gives your life a lot of color. Having something like music, something artistic to be passionate about, the way that I am passionate about music, gives an exciting aspect to life. It's always something to look forward to, and music also is something that gives a lot of color to other people's lives, even if they aren't a musician themselves. You know, depending on a certain feeling, if you're feeling sad, or you just got broken up with, or you just broke up with someone, you can listen to a song, you can relate to songs, because there's so many songs in the world and so many good ones. You can, you know, sit and you can relate to a song, and you can, it resonates with you in a different way. And I think that that's such a beautiful thing about music too. Every song means something different to someone else. So the song Love Takes You Home means something specific to me, and it does have a very, you know, a very obvious hook, you know, but I've never actually moved away to work and miss home like that, you know. But there are people that do, and that song means something different to them than it would to, say, for example, somebody who's lived there their entire life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I find that's one of the most incredible things. And another thing is the sense of community that you find within the music industry, I find, especially in the East Coast. The sense of community is incredible, and there's a lot of collaboration that happens. I find the organic part of performing too is one of my favorite parts. When it's not necessarily rehearsed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, rehearsing is great, and rehearsing is very important. It's very important to be rehearsed. But if you're in a more laid back situation, laid back area, and somebody's up and playing their song or something, and you're hopping onto it and you're doing your thing, or you're playing your own song, and somebody comes in with something that you never would have thought of, but that like just works, or just I find that so important and so amazing. I could talk about music all day. It's like one of my favorite things in the entire world.
Yeah.
It's just, it brings color to lives. It brings color to people's lives, and it makes everything better. Music just makes everything better, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a comfort, a very
Yeah,
necessary one. With
absolutely.
that being said, thank you very much, Isabella Samson, singer-songwriter
Having me.
extraordinaire and soon to be nursing major. Yeah, you're an incredible talent, like I said, and I
Thank
wish you
you.
the best of luck in your future endeavors, musical or otherwise. And do take care of yourself.
Thank you. You too.